The Royal Guards Duel, a battle for honor at Buckingham Palace. Number 1. The calm before the storm. It was a crisp, early autumn morning at Buckingham Palace. The air was sharp, the skies a pale blue, and the red-coated sentries stood in perfect formation, unwavering, as they had done for centuries. The changing of the guard ceremony was about to begin, with hundreds of tourists eagerly lining up to witness the spectacle. In their midst, Private Thomas Shaw stood, his tall, immovable frame stationed near the grand gates of the palace, his eyes fixed straight ahead, his expression unreadable. Shaw had been with the Royal Guard for nearly 6 months, and while he had earned the respect of his fellow soldiers, he still felt like an outsider. The years of training, the endless drills, the discipline, it all felt like a distant memory now, reduced to a series of automatic reflexes. But on this morning, as he stood at his post, he felt something different, a shift in the atmosphere. "Keep your posture, Shaw," Sergeant Aldridge's voice broke through Shaw's thoughts. The older guard's voice was low but firm, like the rumble of thunder before a storm. Shaw nodded, making sure his shoulders squared, his feet planted, his rifle held straight. There was no room for error, not when you were a part of history, not when your every move was scrutinized by millions of eyes. Behind him, the palace gates creaked open. The official changing of the guard ceremony had begun, a precise and elegant display of discipline, uniforms, and music. Shaw's heart beat in rhythm with the drum beats, his senses attuned to the sounds around him, even as his posture remained as stiff as a statue. But as the new guard formation arrived, Shaw noticed something unusual. At the front of the crowd stood a group of well-dressed figures, one of whom, a young man in an extravagant suit, was laughing loudly, drawing attention to himself. Shaw's sharp eyes caught the motion, the careless swagger of the young man as he made his way toward the front lines. Number 2. The provocation. The diplomat's son, as Shaw later learned, was named Alexander Moreau, heir to a vast fortune and known for his arrogance. He had come to London for the first time, and to mark the occasion he had decided to have a bit of fun with the Royal Guard. His friends, equally dressed in fine clothing, snickered at his antics. "Look at this," Alexander said loudly, gesturing to Shaw. "They just stand there, don't they? Like statues. They're not real soldiers, are they?" Shaw's eyes flickered, but he didn't move. He couldn't afford to. The discipline, the training, everything he had learned from the moment he joined the Royal Guard told him to ignore the taunts, to remain steadfast. He felt the familiar anger stir within him, but he pushed it down as he always did. Yet Alexander wasn't finished. He stepped closer, not just to Shaw, but to the guard standing beside him, blocking his view of the palace gates. "I challenge you, soldier," Alexander called out, his voice carrying easily over the crowd. "You and me. Let's see if you can defend yourself. Or are you nothing but a puppet in a fancy uniform?" There were gasps from the onlookers, some shocked, others entertained. Shaw's blood ran cold, his heart hammering in his chest. He had been trained to never engage in confrontation, to remain stoic and unyielding. But this was different. Number 3. The duel proposal. Sergeant Aldridge, who had been watching the scene unfold, stepped forward. "That's enough," he said, his voice low but authoritative. "You will not challenge a royal guard to any form of duel. That is not our way." But Alexander Moreau laughed, dismissing the sergeant with a wave of his hand. "You don't understand," he said, his eyes glinting with mischief. "I'm not talking about some sword fight. I'm talking about a real test of strength. You think you can just stand there all day, unchallenged? Let's see if your discipline is enough to save you." Shaw could feel the weight of his fellow guard's eyes on him. The pressure mounted, but it was nothing compared to the pressure he had felt in the training yards under the stern gaze of his commanding officers. "Private Shaw," Sergeant Aldridge called, his voice stern. "Do not engage with him. We are guards, not entertainers." But Shaw, his jaw clenched, took a step forward. "I'll accept the challenge," he said, his voice steady but filled with resolve. A murmur ran through the crowd as everyone waited for the next move. Sergeant Aldridge's eyes widened, and for a moment, Shaw thought the sergeant might order him off duty right there. But Aldridge said nothing. He simply stepped back, allowing the events to unfold. "I'll take you on, Moreau," Shaw said, locking eyes with the young man. "But not with fists or blades. This is a test of honor. If I win, you leave this place in silence and show respect for the Royal Guard. If you win, you'll have my word that I'll stand down." Alexander's eyes flashed with amusement. He had expected a brawl, a show of physical strength. But Shaw's words threw him off guard. The duel would not be decided with violence. It would be decided by discipline, endurance, and perhaps pride. "Very well," Alexander said, stepping back and gesturing toward a space cleared by the crowd. "Let's see if your discipline is enough to save you from embarrassment." Number 4. The duel begins. The crowd fell silent as Shaw squared up against Moreau. Shaw was tall, athletic, his movements precise, but he wasn't the type to show off his skills. Moreau, on the other hand, was younger, brimming with overconfidence. He threw a few mock punches, attempting to rile Shaw, but the Royal Guard didn't flinch. "I won't fight you with violence, Moreau," Shaw said, "but I will show you that the Royal Guard's strength lies in our ability to endure." Moreau smirked. "Endurance? Is that your big trick?" Shaw remained silent, focused. The duel wasn't about strength. It was about control. It was about resisting the urge to lash out, to strike. It was about standing firm no matter the challenge, even when every fiber of your being screamed to do something different. Moreau lunged forward, attempting to shove Shaw off balance. Shaw didn't budge. He held his ground, his posture as firm as the stone walls of the palace. Moreau's smirk faltered. He tried again, harder this time, throwing a punch aimed at Shaw's jaw. Shaw dodged it, a fluid movement that was both practiced and efficient. The punch missed, and for a brief moment, Moreau's confidence slipped. He stumbled, and that's when Shaw made his move, not with violence, but with strategy. He stepped inside Moreau's guard, using his opponent's momentum against him, and expertly twisted Moreau's wrist to subdue him without causing harm. Moreau gasped in frustration, trying to free himself, but Shaw's grip was unwavering, his stance unyielding. The crowd watched in awe as Shaw demonstrated not just physical restraint, but the mental fortitude that was the hallmark of a Royal Guard. Number 5. The conclusion. Moments passed, and finally Alexander Moreau collapsed to his knees, panting and defeated. His pride had been shattered, his arrogance humbled. Shaw's grip loosened, and he allowed Moreau to stand, though the young man's face was flushed with embarrassment. "You've won," Alexander muttered, his voice thick with humiliation. "You've proven your point." Shaw nodded, his expression still stoic. "I've proven that strength isn't about force. It's about control." Moreau, eyes cast downward, finally understood. He had come to Buckingham Palace seeking a spectacle, something to entertain him. But what he had found was the unyielding discipline of the Royal Guard, something far more powerful than anything he had imagined. Sergeant Aldridge stepped forward, a look of approval in his eyes. "Well done, Shaw," he said quietly. "You've shown that the Royal Guard's strength lies not in fists, but in the discipline to stand firm, no matter the challenge." As Shaw turned back to his post, the crowd slowly began to disperse, some whispering in awe at the encounter they had just witnessed. Shaw returned to his position, his mind calm, his body steady. He was more than just a soldier now. He was a royal guard, and he had defended his honor without a single blow.